Since I started working in the Ministry of Defense in the 1980s, I don't think it has ever been as tense as it is today. And I'm more worried about nuclear weapons today than I've been before. My name is Efjestad. I have held senior positions in the Norwegian Ministry of Defense for 40 years and retired from those positions last month. I studied here at the University of Oslo in the 1970s, and this is my first time back at the university for 40 years. I think there is reason for concern, but I still don't think Russia will use nuclear weapons. One of the reasons why I think they will not use it is the fact that I think if they do, they will become the pariah of the whole world, not only in Western Europe, but also those countries who have not condemned the Russian invasion in Ukraine, like China and India. I think it would be a great blow to Russian reputation all over the world, also in developing countries. Perhaps also in their own population, I think the use of nuclear weapons would be a blow to the perception inside Russia. And not to mention the effect it would have towards Western Europe and the United States. I don't know what kind of response would come from the West, but I think there would be a strong response. So I really hope that Russia will not use nuclear weapons. But there are many ways to use nuclear weapons. There could also be a demonstrative use. They could start testing again, for example. And their only operational test site is actually not too far from Norway, on the island of Novaya Zemlya. So there are many scenarios, but all in all, I don't think they will use it. I think there is a specific Norwegian approach to nuclear weapons stemming actually from the 1960s. The Norwegian government made the decision not to permanently deploy nuclear weapons on Norwegian soil in peacetime. And that has been the policy ever since 1960. And that means that we support NATO's strategic concepts, NATO's nuclear policies. We participate in all the decision fora in NATO that deals with nuclear weapons on the ministerial level, on the civil servant level, and military levels. And we also participate in kind of tabletop exercises regarding nuclear weapons, but we do not allow the permanent stationing of nuclear weapons on Norwegian soil in peacetime. But it is up to Norway to decide what is peacetime. And it's up to Norway to decide what is permanent and what is stationing. So that gives a certain amount of flexibility for the Norwegian governments to decide exactly where the limits are for Norwegian nuclear policy. There were periods during the Cold War which were very dangerous, very tense. I did not work in the ministry then, but during the Cuban Missile Crisis, I was aware of the situation and very nervous indeed, and everybody around me were nervous. And I believe also during the Korean War, there was quite some fear about nuclear weapons. But I think since I started working in the Ministry of Defense in the 1980s, I don't think it has ever been as tense as it is today. And I'm more worried about nuclear weapons today than I've been before. Of course, there are many aspects of nuclear weapons which could cause worry. One such aspect is the control of nuclear weapons. And when the Soviet Union was disassembled and you had nuclear weapons in many of the republics, we were very concerned about the safety and the control of nuclear weapons. Today, I think that is improved. But given the war going on in Ukraine, I'm very concerned about also nuclear weapons. The Nordic Defence Cooperation have been expanded a lot since we established the so-called NORDEFCO, Nordic Defence Organization, in 2010. And we do a lot of training exercises together. We also consult a lot, and we have classified information and communication system. So we are already very tight, I think, in the Nordic defense family. But of course, when they become members, it becomes much more binding. Today, we don't have any binding arrangement for crisis and war. And when Finland and Sweden are finally admitted into NATO, I suppose we can interact much more directly in a binding way with them. And with the resources that the Swedes and the Finns bring into NATO, I think our security in the Nordic region will be much improved. But it is important that the government also then use the opportunity to establish communication lines and procedures and plans which promote Nordic integration as part of NATO. But I think it will be a great improvement for our security, and it will probably allow us to focus even more on the challenges in the ocean areas, where the Nordic contribution to the Arctic might be less. But overall, I think it will offer a great improvement for Norwegian security. I think my experience when it comes to preparing for a job is that you shouldn't be too specialized. Because whatever ministry or organization you join, you will have to learn again. And you have to also cultivate certain personal qualities. I think the ability to take initiatives, to be forward-leaning, is very important. It is also very important to be able to formulate your position in a good way. So I think having a broad background, for example, in history, in international law, in political science, is more important than to be very specialized. Because if you join, for example, as I did, the Ministry of Defense, you will learn a lot of security policy and military plans and procedures and things like that, which you would never learn at universities. I think it will be difficult for students and researchers to play a direct role in preventing nuclear threats. But I think it is important that universities and students play an active role in promoting the knowledge and insight into security affairs. And I think also with the international contacts and relations that students and universities have, to kind of spread the idea that you need to have a rational defense and security policy which promotes stability, because I think the biggest danger of nuclear weapons is what happens when our security architecture is withering away and you have chaos-like situations and conventional attacks. So to play a role in informing the greater public and to be a force for understanding and insight into defense and security, I think is an important role for students and researchers. I'm not sure I can offer much comfort to those who are scared and nervous about the current affairs, because I think the situation is very dangerous too. It's very unstable. I think we should all use more energy to promote what I will call for ability to withstand attack. Our total defense concept is important. I think we also need to look at how vulnerable we are as a society and as persons if things go wrong. For example, we don't have money anymore. If we lose electricity, we can't pay. If we lose electricity, we use the internet. We lose everything which we are used to in normal times. So I think it is important to look to that you and your family have the basic instruments to survive and get along in a crisis. That's my best advice.